Diane?
It was a stunner. A California woman has been awarded more than $120 million in damages after her husband's HMO allegedly refused to pay for his cancer treatments. It's the largest judgment ever against an HMO. David Goodrich was only 44 years old when he died in 1995 after a 3-year battle with a rare form of stomach cancer. His wife, Teresa, took Aetna U.S. Healthcare of California to court, and this week a jury found the managed care giant acted with, quote, malice, oppression, and fraud. Teresa Goodrich and her attorney, Michael Bidart, join us now from Claremont, California, and we thank you both for being with us. Mrs. Goodrich, what was your reaction when that verdict came in?
Well, I was surprised at the amount of the award, but just so glad because it sends such a powerful message to these companies that they can't continue to treat people the way they treated Dave.
You really presented two issues, both the refusal to pay and the delays in making approvals of any kind, sometimes weeks, sometimes months. Which of the issues was it that really drove you to court?
Was that question to me?
Either one of you, Mr. Bidart.
I didn't hear the question altogether. I think probably the most significant thing was the fact that Aetna's own in-plan medical doctors were recommending to David that they didn't have the expertise to treat the cancer in the plan and that he should go outside of the plan to specialists, and people that were not medical doctors were not allowing him to go. Basically, business decisions were being made not to let him get the care he needed.
Well, Mr. Bidart, as you know, Aetna has said that this is a case about emotion and not fact. And if the jury had known that to some extent, Mrs. Goodrich's insurance picked up some of the payments, they wouldn't have come down with this verdict.
I think the contrary is true. The information, I heard that in the press myself, the only information that the jury didn't get on that subject was the fact that the Yucaipa-Calamasa School District, a very small, self-funded insurance plan in San Bernardino County, after we got involved, more than 1 year after she had been left with $750,000 of bills, under threat of litigation, went ahead and paid the bills and took a lien in the file. As a result of that, school teachers in that school district didn't get their pay raise for 2 years. If that information had come to the jury, I think that the verdict may very well have been greater. So I really think that that's a poor excuse. That information under California law cannot come into evidence because it's a collateral source.
Mrs. Goodrich, what did the jurors say to you?
Well, they were so kind. They told me they were really outraged by what I had to go through and what Dave had to go through, and they were just glad that now I was going to be able to get past this and go on with my life.
Well, again, we certainly hope you can, and we thank you both for joining us from California. But what about the other side? Charlie has more on that.
Aetna U.S. Healthcare has vowed to appeal the judgment, and so joining us now from Philadelphia is Dr. Arthur Leibowitz. He is Chief Medical Officer for Aetna U.S. Healthcare. Dr. Leibowitz, your reaction to this verdict, it seems to me it shows that people are mad at what they perceive as the arrogance of HMOs.
Well, as you said, Charlie, we do intend to appeal the verdict, and we think the jury made the wrong decision. It does certainly reflect a certain public perception of HMOs, and the industry as a whole has to do a better job at getting our message across.
But even doctors in your own system, I gather, admitting they were inexperienced with this kind of cancer, said he needed treatment outside the system, and Aetna balked.
No. In fact, Mr. Goodrich was treated outside the system with Aetna's approval. Aetna arranged for coverage for Mr. Goodrich to be treated at a regional cancer center that was outside the network. And the recommendations that he received from the experts at that cancer center were, in fact, the treatments that he received. You delayed on the marrow, bone marrow transplant and the chemotherapy payments. You delayed on the cryosurgery, and as a result, this thing advanced much faster, perhaps, than it would have had he been gotten that treatment earlier. It's interesting because the perception of the facts can be looked at in different ways. When Mr. Goodrich was first evaluated, his doctors thought he might be a candidate for a bone marrow transplant. And at that time, Aetna undertook a review using outside independent experts of whether that treatment was in fact recommended. His doctor then decided that he was not a candidate for a bone marrow transplant. Independently, those experts also concluded that he was not a candidate for a bone marrow transplant. So there was no delay on Aetna's part that affected Mr. Goodrich.
I gather, because of this case, have appointed an external review board to look at your decisions. Is that right?
We made a decision to offer voluntary external review to all of our members in our HMO plans, even beyond where it's required at this point in time by the states and by Medicare.
But my question is, why didn't you do that earlier? Isn't that an admission that you messed up in this case?
No, I don't think so. When you look at the things that are going on across the country today, it was clear to us, and we've been working on this for a long time, that this is the sense of security that people need in their health plan. We did it because we were confident that this health plan stands for doing the right thing for its members anyway.
All right. Dr. Leibowitz, I appreciate you being with us this morning. Thanks very much. Good to talk to you. It is 20 minutes after the hour. Good Morning America continues.